Hey guys, Corey here from Sky's the Limit Car Care, and today we are going to talk about one of my favorite products, CARPRO Hydro 2, and the various versions of Hydro 2. So, first of all, we're going to talk about the very first Hydro product that came to the CARPRO line, and that's CARPRO Hydro 2. Better known as CARPRO Hydro 2 concentrate. So if it just says Hydro 2, this is an actual concentrate. You can dilute this anywhere in the 1 to 6 up to 1 to 10 range. For people that are new to the product, we usually recommend 1 to 10. You're still going to get fantastic properties out of the product. The reason or the function of CARPRO Hydro 2 is basically to replace your wax or sealant or ceramic coating if you don't want something as significant or as long-lasting as a ceramic coating, and you want something that's super fast to apply, has great beading properties, great sheeting properties, repels water, repels dirt, and is super resistant to chemicals and all sorts of things like that. Also very resistant to UV, but basically it's a means of protection for your vehicle, in short. So there's 3 different versions of CARPRO Hydro. You've got the CARPRO Hydro 2 concentrate, and then you have the CARPRO Hydro 2 light. This is a already diluted mixture of the CARPRO Hydro 2. So for those that don't want to deal with mixing their own or diluting it or any of those things, then you can buy the Hydro 2 light ready to use and put a spray nozzle in it, and you can start using it as we're going to show you how to do in this video. The final version of CARPRO Hydro 2, and personally my favorite, is the Hydro 2 foam. Hydro 2 foam actually is a soap viscosity. It has soap in it. It is a cleaner as well as a sealant. I personally don't really use it as a cleaner. There's something for me that just goes against everything I feel good about as far as putting sealant on top of dirt. So I still like to wash the car with the CARPRO reset, get it clean, and then seal it with the Hydro foam and use it as just the sealant aspect of it. But at that point, after you've washed the car, you could use either product. You could use the diluted Hydro 2 concentrate or the Hydro foam, and it'll seal your vehicle very quickly. The reason that I prefer the Hydro foam is just because we deal with a wide variety of people, and for foolproof sake, this is probably the easiest product to use as far as not having it having any chance of it leaving any high spots or stains or anything like that, which can happen with a Hydro product or any kind of product that's as strong as Hydro if you do not use it correctly. So one of the reasons that the Hydro foam is a little bit easier to use than the Hydro 2, or I should say a little more foolproof, not easier, but a little more foolproof, is because the Hydro 2 spray, when you go to spray it on the vehicle, the wind can catch that spray and it can float around to the other side, land on the other side of the vehicle, and then when you go to rinse the area that you were working on, you won't know to go and rinse out of the vehicle if you're not really paying attention and really understand the product. So you may end up with some spots that, some particles that floated over, landed over there, and now you've got little dots of it sealant. And it's not like wax, or it's not like a weak, diluted, traditional, old school sealant. This is really powerful stuff. So if you just leave it sitting there and you don't rinse it off right away, then it will stick to it and it's not going to come off eventually. I mean, you can get it off, but it's not going to be simple. So you want to use it the right way. If you do use it the right way, you will be rewarded with a phenomenal product, probably the most mind-blowing product in the industry if you like putting really amazing protection on really quickly. So let me back up a little bit and talk about how to use it, and then we'll go right into the demo. Obviously, if you're going to use the Hydro 2, the concentrate, you're going to dilute that. You can do that by using the dilute bottle. We've got markings on there, 1 to 30, 1 to 20, 1 to 15. So there's 1 to 10, 1 to 8, 1 to 6. So for Hydro 2, you would fill this bottle up with water all the way up to at least that 1 to 6 mark, all the way up to 1 to 10 if you wanted to dilute a little bit further, if you're very new to the product and wanted it a little bit weaker. And then you would just fill the rest with Hydro 2, and that little patch right there. So if you're going to use the Hydro foam, the way to use the Hydro foam, this too can be diluted. You could use the new CARPRO Measure Cup for diluting this, and you might dilute that, put it in the snow foam gun, or what I like to do is I like to squirt it directly onto, I just put a snow foam pump and nozzle into the bottle, and I'll just squirt a little bit directly onto my wet mitt and just rub it across it just like a soap, just straight. I don't dilute it, I just squirt some on my mitt, rub it over my clean, wet car, do a few, 2-3 panels at a time, rinse that area off, and then move to the next area. So whichever one you use, but even more so the sprays, some of the biggest and most important tips to do with Hydro is, as I spoke about a little bit earlier, not leaving it on the car too long. Don't use it in direct sun. Do not use it on a hot surface, and always use it on a wet surface. So to break that down and make it a little bit more complex, but the details are important for those that really want to get into them, I'm going to talk a little bit about cars that have a ceramic coating on them and cars that have no protection on them. These two panels here have little to no protection on them. They're a great candidate for showing you the reaction from, it's going to be straight sheeting water to very hydrophobic once we apply the product. But when you might use a product like Hydro foam over a product like Hydro spray, especially would be on a ceramic coated car. On a ceramic coated car, the surface is going to be very hydrophobic, the water's not going to stick to it, and as we already said, it's important to have a wet surface to put Hydro2 on. So if you have a really hydrophobic surface, you can't keep the surface wet. As soon as you put water on it, the water leaves. And so if you try to spray Hydro on a surface like that already has a ceramic coating on it, then you're more prone or more likely to be asking for trouble because you're not putting it on a wet surface. Whereas the Hydro foam, sure, you need to have the wet surface, but because it's a foam viscosity and you're putting it on with a wet mitt, it's going to kind of stay wet and it'll repel it, and you'll see the foam pressing out if it's a coated car, but at least it gives you a little bit longer, so you can kind of work the surface a little bit longer. Secondly, I'm assuming that if you have a ceramic coated car that you just spent either 40 hours polishing and perfecting it recently, or you just paid a few $1,000s doing the same thing. And so anyway, you've invested a lot into getting the car the way it is. And the last thing you want to do is end up with a stain on it that you can only remove by mechanical means, by using a polish or something like that. And so that's why we usually recommend on a ceramic coated car or a car that's in a certain condition, if you don't really know what you're doing especially, then Hydro foam is the better one to use. Still use it with caution. Look at all our tips. We've got them all on our website. If you just click on the Hydro2 foam or Hydro2, depending on which one you're looking at, we've got a full list of precautions and really detailed things to think about. And once you get those into your mind, super fast product to use, as you'll see. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and move into the demos here, and I'm going to do the Hydro foam demo over here with the snow foam cannon, and then I'll do a little, just a quick little demo just to show you how I do it with a sponge as well, if you prefer, if you don't have a snow foam cannon, and then we'll do a second demo over here with the Hydro light. So we've already washed the vehicle here. As you can see, the water's pretty flat. It's moving very slowly off the panel. So with the Hydro foam, we've already put our Hydro foam in here, and it's basically as simple as just spraying it on the vehicle. So literally that's all I have to do. And then we just let it sit there for a minute. And at this point, it's already ready to rinse off. So little spots like that, that land in other places, you don't want to leave those on the vehicle. You want to go ahead and get those off when you go to rinse it. You don't want to just rinse the area you're doing and then move on to the next. You want to actually rinse all that off of the vehicle and make sure that you don't leave that up there for too long for it to dry. As you can see, as that foam is coming off the vehicle, it's starting to bead more and more. Once it all comes off, you can see the water no longer stays on the surface, it just instantly repels the water. It does the same thing with dirt. So anything that's normally going to stick to your car is a lot less likely to stick to your car, and moving forward, washing your vehicle is also going to be a lot easier. So as you can see, it works great. It's super protected this way. with using the snow foam cannon. But if you don't have a snow foam cannon, or if you just for whatever reason want to do it another way, you can just wet your mitt, have the surface already wet, and you can literally just put a little product on straight like that, and then just rub it on. Just for demo's sake, I'm just doing that one little area, but you could do that amount basically across the whole panel. And then you just literally do the same thing. You're just applying it in a different manner, really. And as you can see here, super good beads all along here. Still over here, it's the water sticking to the paint a little bit more. It's slowly coming off there, and it's speeding off the paint right here. So one final tip with the Hydro2 foam, or the Hydro2 for that matter, is that when you rinse it, you don't necessarily want the highest pressure in the world. You don't need a ton of pressure. It is good to have pressure, but you want a high volume of water as well. If you have tons of pressure but no volume of water, then you can just blow, especially with the Hydro2, not as much with the foam, but you can just blow the Hydro2 around on the car and end up blowing it into areas you don't want to blow it into. So you want a volume of water as well. That way it rinses it all, flushes it all out of there, and you get it off the paint, and then the paint can shine and look crazy glossy and look as reflective as you've ever possibly seen it look. So now we're going to go ahead and move on into the Hydro2 demo. In this case, we're using Hydro2 Light. It should be very similar to if you had taken Hydro2 concentrate and diluted it. Either way, you're ending up with a concentrate of somewhere between 1 to 6 and 1 to 10 of the concentrate. It's just already diluted if you purchase the Hydro2 Light formula. So with this, obviously adjust your nozzle so you get a nice fine spray. Be cognizant of any wind movement that you have so you know which way it's spraying. You don't want to spray it in your eyes. And literally you need much less than you think. That's plenty. And then you immediately rinse it back off the panel, and you can see how well it beads and repels water just with that simple spray and rinse technique. Now, good practice would be to go ahead and rinse over here again as well, because I noticed the wind was moving in this direction. So even if you don't notice it right now while it's wet, you take those sprays, tiny little dots of that product are going to be blowing this way and landing down here. So we want to go ahead and keep that in mind as we're doing the whole car and rinsing that area wherever the wind blew each time we do it. And that way when you go to dry the vehicle off, which is a very important step, you don't end up with little dots that are going to be hard to get off. Those dots, if left on for more than 20 minutes, generally speaking, obviously climate, humidity, temperature all play a role, but generally speaking 20 minutes, if they're left on longer than that, it's going to be a really big issue to get them off. You're going to have to use like our CARPRO Reflect will take it right off by hand, but then you got to redo it again. So with the Hydro. So a couple closing thoughts, guys, with the Hydro2 products is if you do ever get any of those spots that we talked about, if you don't rinse it off fast enough and you do have a couple spots where some Hydro2 stayed on the surface too long, as long as you get to them in a reasonable amount of time, then you can remove them by simply spraying a little Hydro2 or a little Hydro foam on the mitt like that, and then wherever that spot is, you just kind of rub it like that for a minute and then immediately rinse it back off, and that should take the spot off. You don't want to abuse that by leaving it on for a day or even really more than 20-30 minutes, but if you run into that after you've gone back and dried the vehicle and you see a spot, that's how you get rid of it. All right, guys, that wraps it up for today. I want to thank you guys for joining us again. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any comments or questions, make sure to leave those below. If you would like to purchase either of these products shown in the video, you can find the links right here. And be sure to let us know if we can help you out in the future. Take care. Bye-bye.